My name is Rehan Ali Muhammad. Welcome back. This is another edition of Do You Know the Laws? So today we're going to talk about tax law. I'm a CPA as well. I was a CPA before I even went to law school many years ago. Our firm has actually trained about 200 enrolled agents, CPAs, and attorneys in the past few years on how to deal with the IRS. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the basics of what to do if you're in a certain situation. So there's a notice called CP90, which is called the Final Notice of Intent to Levy. Now, before this notice, you've probably gotten a bunch of notices before, and most people just ignore them. That's definitely not the best way to handle it. Best way is to look at the notices from the very beginning and take it to an attorney who is qualified to handle it. A lot of CPAs do your tax returns, but when something's wrong with it, they can't really fix it with the IRS. They definitely can't go to tax court and fix it. So our firm can. One of the things that I'm going to tell you today has to do with your options when you get something like this, Final Notice of Intent to Levy. So the CP90 is basically when the IRS is going to levy your bank account, your wages, or your other assets. The CP91 is when they're going to levy your Social Security benefits. So one of the things that you can do is you can look at the notice and you can basically pay the balance. And obviously you have to be in full compliance. By full compliance, that means you have to have all your returns filed. Not the ones that you have on extension, but basically any ones from previous years, you have to have them filed. A lot of people can't afford to pay their full balance. And so option one is usually not the best option for people because a lot of people can't afford it. But option two is what's called an installment agreement. The installment agreements are usually 60 months, which is 5 years. And again, any option you take, you have to be in full compliance first. So if you have several years of tax returns unfiled, you have to have them filed first before the IRS is going to consider that, or any option. But once you do that, you can do an installment agreement. If you owe less than $25,000, it's what's called a streamlined installment agreement. It's pretty easy. You can do it over the phone. If it's a large installment agreement, which means over $25,000 is owed, then you have to give a lot of financial information. You have to give information that's listed on what's called a financial information statement, and it goes into your assets, your liabilities, your expenses, your income, and they determine from that how much you can afford to pay. Another option that a lot of people don't know about is called CNC, or currently non-collectible. Basically what that does is if your income is less than your expenses, according to the IRS. Now IRS has their standard on what your expenses can be. So if your income is less than your expenses and you don't have assets out there that you can cash in to pay the IRS, then the IRS can put you in a status called currently non-collectible. Basically what it means is they know that it's a waste of time going after you and trying to get money because there's nothing to be had there. You're just barely making ends meet, or maybe not even. And so that is a status they can put on you for up to 10 years, depending on certain statutes. There will be a lien, and basically if your income changes drastically upward in the next few years before the statute expires, then they're going to say that now it's time for you to pay the piper. Otherwise, after a few years and you're still in CNC status and you've maintained compliance, which means you filed all your tax returns when due, and you didn't owe any additional money, then that tax debt goes away. So that is a good option. There's obviously this other option that's very famous now, very popular, and you probably heard these commercials that say, we can save you pennies on the dollar. We owed $100,000 and we only paid $20. It's not that easy. I wouldn't suggest going with any of those companies. They're not law firms. They're basically out there to make money, like a lot of people are, but they're not so much as, they don't really want to help you as much as they want to make money. That's not what our philosophy is. So basically, an offer in compromise is what they're talking about. And in offer in compromise, you have to give the IRS information, just like you did with the large installment agreement, on what your income is, what your expenses are, your assets, your liabilities. And then after that analysis, that financial analysis, if the IRS determines that you can only afford to pay $50 on a tax debt of $100,000, and you've established it with documentation and things like that, then they will accept that $50 and your tax debt goes away. Now, while that offer in compromise is pending, they may slap a lien on you. That's normal. But once you pay off that $50 and they agree that that's all they're going to take, then your tax lien goes away and your tax debt goes away. The last option that I'm really not going to talk about here because it's beyond the scope is bankruptcy. A lot of people think if they file for bankruptcy, your tax debt is going to go away. That's really not the case. There are pages and pages of statutes and requirements that a person has to meet for a bankruptcy to wipe out tax debt, and usually it does not apply. So that is really not the best option. Obviously, bankruptcy does a lot of other bad things like mess up people's credits and things like that. So, I would definitely pursue one of these other 4 options before you pursue something like bankruptcy if you have a tax debt. Now, obviously, with any of these options, you always have to stay in full compliance. You need to have all your tax returns filed. If you have any questions on any of these options, if you've gotten any notices from the IRS and you need help, whether it's audits or anything like that, you can call us at 800-814-3920, or you can email us at mail@attorneyrayhan.com.